Round 22 is quickly upon us, and here we are for Draft Stars and our tips for each game. So, heading into the first one, Roosters and Broncos. Looking at the outside backs, and Roosters played a lot better last game, but this is a much tougher opponent in the Broncos there. So, yeah, how do we actually think they'll go? That's the worry. Tony Staggs is very, very cheap, and he finally had a massive game. And do they finally start giving him good ball, or is it back to the traditional 20s that he's been hitting on a regular basis? Joseph Suaalii is a much better selection now that he's on the wing, so I'd probably slot him in at 10.5. Dean Mariner also has been scoring solidly in his time out there. Reece Walsh has been really good as well, 51 last week, and he's the cheaper of those really top options. So there's plenty of options there. Pick the ones that you please, obviously. Brandon Smith comes back with a bang as well, and do we expect him to continue doing that? Or do we probably look towards Aaron Reynolds as our surefire half hooker in this one? Sandon Smith will also be solid, but has been a little bit down on his form in recent weeks, that's for sure. If you're looking at the forwards, then Tom Flegler comes back in, which is good. He was averaging 43, which would be great for that price point. Hargraves is the other big one there at 44 average at a 12.5k clip. We see Piakura is gone, so Carrigan goes to the edge, and we want to avoid him there. Payne Haas is obviously the clear top dog, and Egan Butcher has been scoring solidly as well at that price point. So look at those guys in the forwards there. Moving to the Tigers and the Bunnies, and you want to be looking at Latrell Mitchell in his return game at 18.6. Very, very important player, obviously. In his return, and he should absolutely dominate the Tigs. So I'd be looking to really have a lot of Rabbitohs in your side. Isaiah Tass, Johnston, these kind of guys could have their big game. Obviously, Tane Milne, 9K, could definitely score well, but you probably want to be going for the safer type of options in Mitchell, in Graham there for sure. If you're looking at halves hookers, Lockie Ellis had a bit of a low one last week, and it might just be left side dominant this week, especially with Latrell back as well, and him getting a few of the balls off Ilias, Latrell Mitchell on that right side as well. So you probably want to be looking towards Cody Walker in this game here. Really the only option I see in my opinion. Moving to the forwards, and Cam Murray was great last week. Can he do that again? Can Koloamatangi score a try in this one and be a much better scorer for you there? Can Jacob Host score a try? All options to think of. Hame Sele as a really solid middle forward option there for sure. Would probably be where I look at in that price point, and then going up to Keon, and obviously Cam Murray would be really good there for that one. Moving to Storm and Eels, and the outside backs there, I think it'll be a fairly close game. So if you can look towards, obviously Simonson had a bit of a low one last week. Penasini was very dominant and had lots of tackle breaks, which assisted him to 69. And him and Gutho are the surefire bets there. Marion Seve, when he does get a crack, seems to score really, really well. He's a great base stat kind of guy. So he'd be the Storm man that I'd be looking at. Halves hookers, definitely expect a bounce back from Moses, but he is very expensive, and you could probably look at Munster to have a slightly better game there at 58, very consistent, whereas Moses had 2 low ones in his past 2. So if you think Storm can win, then I still would be looking at Munster. Grant averaging 54. It's just been a very up and down season for the hookers, so I'd be looking at Munster. And obviously Hands is very solid, but they do have Joey Lussick on the bench, unfortunately, which is a little bit annoying for him. Okay, moving to the forwards, and Cartwright has been super dominant, so you definitely need to look at him. Had a lot of offloads last week, which isn't as great in draft stars as it is for fantasy. The tackle breaks as 3-pointer is where you want to be. So, still a really good score there, but not as amazing as it could have been. Andrew Davey in the start at 10.6 is going to be a solid play, I think, if he can get big minutes out. And then Tom Eisenhuth, if he can play some decent minutes, he'll be solid as well at under 11k. Very, very easy selections there with Junior Barlow there at 39.5 average. It's pretty average. Let's just leave it at that there. Moving to the next one, and you're looking at the Raiders up against the Knights, and in the outside backs, there's so many good options here. Bradman Best, I think, is a clear must-have at 13.5. Has the great upside, but is also getting better and better with his base stats each and every week. Just leave it at that and go from there. Half hookers, very, very low across the board. So Phoenix Crossland, by default, becomes the best option at 13,300. He's actually getting cheaper, and he's averaging 56, which is just crazy. Tyson Frizzell is the clear top dog in that under 20k price point, but Corey Horsburgh is your man at a 74.5 average, which is just incredible with the base that he's getting through. And then Lockie Fitzgibbon at the slightly cheaper price in the 15,000s. They're the really guys you need to be looking at. So I think you go heavy in this section. And then you go a little bit lighter, obviously in the halves, and going on into the outside backs from there is probably where you want to spend that bit of money as well. Into the next one. So the Manly Show. If you're looking here, it's Garrick all the way. Lomax obviously, can be very dominant even in losing sides, so he definitely has to be thought of. So if you can get the two of them, that'd be great. But Kohler, they had a really, really good game after being poor for the majority of the year. So I really don't think you can look past the top two in Lomax, Garrick, and then Kohler. I'd say has some upside if they go on a bit of a tear there. And in the halves hookers, it's just daily Cherry Evans all the way. And then Lockie Croker's gotten a lot more expensive the last few weeks, but he is absolutely scoring well enough to warrant that. And in the forwards there, you've got DeBellin is the clear top guy up top. But Olakwatu could definitely score a try in there. And you've got the cheaper guys. You've got Billy Burns at 14-3, continues to score well, so get him in your side. And then Dan Russell is the other cheap man that scored well last week in that 40 effort, which was really, really good. No one really else of note. Kelvin Tuolangi's been okay in that last 3 weeks since returning, and Matt Lodge should be able to get some big minutes like he did. So there's so many forward options. I would actually push you towards having 4 forwards and 1 in the flex there in that one. Moving on to Panthers and the Sharkies. So this will be a fun matchup, that's for sure. Brian Toto, I think, is a clear top play over Crichton and the like, but I think Peachy is the next guy on the list. If you can get him as a starter, we see what he can put up there. In a 53 last week, a couple of tries. It's him, and it's Toto for me as the clear best options, and then Dylan Edwards following that. Halves hookers, we get Cleary cheaper than Hines, and I think that's a mistake in this one. Sharkies are on a little bit of a slide, and I think Cleary will be much better for the run. Hitting a 59 when he didn't play very well was very simple stuff for him. So lock that one in, and then moving to the forwards, and Cam McInnes is the best option here at the price point, given he'll get big minutes again. He's been scoring he scored a try last week, and he's very consistent other than that. I think he's your guy. Liam Martin's been solid, obviously, to get a few tackle breaks in there. Wade Graham gets the start this week on an edge, so at 10K, he will do, that's for sure, just nicely. Last 2 games, Bulldogs and the Dolphins, and really in this one, I would expect the Dolphins to win, but the Dogs have a few outside backs that are scoring really well, and that's Kiraz and Averillo, 2 guys that you could look to slot into your side. I think Jermaine Asako will have a much better game, and Cody Nikorima should be able to play well. Also, you get cheaper with Valance, and he should be able to score well. Ewan Aiken hit a 70 last game. There's so many options in here. I probably would suggest going with 3 outside backs in this one, 1 in the flex. All right, halves hookers. Toby Sexton returns, which is good news for the Dogs, and I think he'll be able to score well again. He was on the way to a good score, and I would be selecting him first in this section here for sure. Moving to the forwards, Lemuelu is an interesting one at 15-8, given he scored really, really well in the game before their bye. Felice Kafusi is really cheap. Raymond Fatalamarina also cheap, but just not scoring well enough. Around that 30 range. Bromwich is obviously closer to 40, which is good. Kickout, I think if he can come back and do well, can outdo his 40 average. But he has 2 low ones, one within 2 low ones this year, a 40 and a 50. So he definitely has some upside, but you probably want to be looking somewhere around those guys I mentioned just before. Last game, let's finish it there. Titans Cowboys. So tips in this one. Scott Drinkwater, you just have to have him in your side, really, don't you? He just continues to absolutely smash it. 80 last week. 58 is lowest in the last 4, which is ridiculous. So keep selecting him. Semi Valame continues to score tries. Peter Hiku is getting involved in a lot of the assisting as well, which is good. And Talangi there. So I just think Cowboys all the way in the outside backs. Very, very simple. AJ Brimson would be solid as well for sure, but I think you can do better in a team that will probably win pretty comfortably. Reece Robson, we want to avoid. Chris Randall playing in the middle. Yes, please get him in your side. Maximum. He should be maximum picked. First pick there. Tom Dearden as well, been really, really good out there. And then you want to look at Aaron Clark at 11,200. It's just ridiculous. He scored in the 69.7 last week. Was crazy. So slot him in. I think Fafita is going to be a great pick as well. If you have enough cash. If you don't, then Lucy Leilua, a bit of a low one last week at 38. But if that's his minimum and he can get into the 60s and happy days for that. And Stimson comes back, and he was only doing okay in that starting role. So probably want to avoid him. Finna Firiaki, if you're looking at a cheap player to be able to slot in Drinkwaters and the like, then Finnair is going to be your guy. I think you should be able to get a 30 plus in the start and really help you out. That's the Draftstars video, guys. Good luck in round 22.